All right. Hello there, ladies, gentlemen, gamers, and TikTok enthusiasts, Dark Dimension believers. Welcome one, welcome all, and welcome back. So, we are on episode 21 of the Dark Dimension TikTok series, where I react to TikToks that basically shows the Dark Dimension is real, that things are fucked, everything is bad, and they're only getting worse, and it might be too late, but it might not, I don't know. But I try and show people the truth. And also, it's a big advertisement for my Twitch channel, Twitch TV/Tecnics channel, where I stream every day, and you could come, hang out, interact with me, and watch me play games. But anyway, we're back once again to, as said before, react to more TikToks, and convince ourselves we are in the Dark Dimension. But I don't need the convincing. It's my thousands and thousands of audience members that need the convincing. But anyway, coming off yesterday, or for you guys last week, because even though I'm recording these daily because of a big break, I am releasing them weekly. So, coming off last time, we had a little funny little banana cat thing that basically showed me, or showed you guys how I was. So, we're pretty much about a month behind exactly, if not sooner, because this came out on 6/3 and currently it is 7/3. Currently it is 12:30 in the morning for me on July 3rd, and this came out June 3rd. So we're about a month behind, and we're going to catch up hopefully pretty quickly. Because these are still a month behind, I don't remember them fully. I remember some of them, but not all of them. So it will be kind of like a first-time reaction for both me and you. And I have an excuse to eat my din-din here, which I can't really do on my stream at Twitch TV/Tecnics channel because I forget. But here, when I watch things, I have the incessant need to eat. When I watch show, I eat food. So what's on today's palette? Some lovely steak I just grilled up at 12:30 at night, some yogurt, and some Cheetos mac and cheese. So without further ado, let's see what's going on. We have this 9-minute video that I didn't want to get into yesterday because it was 9 minutes, but let's get into it today and let's see what it's about. Ooh!
This is becoming a pattern. One of the richest men in the world lost 2/3 of his wealth in a matter of days after a small research organization accused him of running a Ponzi-like scheme. The
loser. So this is one thing I want to put forward. As we've seen in the previous episodes, and I'm sure I'm going to repeat myself a bunch of times, stuff like AI and stuff that's in the news that can be fake now is heavily affecting the stock market. Not heavily like, Great Depression type levels, but heavily affecting to where people can very seriously lose some money in the stock market because of stuff that's completely fake and phony. So it's no surprise to me that a guy can lose his net worth pretty quickly if most of his stuff is tied into the stock market. And I'm always a big proponent. Now, granted, this isn't financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm far from it. I'm an idiot. But one thing I always try and recommend people is don't listen to what the rich people do. Emulate what they do. If the rich person tells you what to do to be rich, take it with a grain of salt, but copy them. And you know what most rich people do? They do two things. Number one, they own a lot of real estate. They rent out stuff. Number two, they own a lot of stocks, and they get dividends, which pays for itself. And in the taxes, dividends and stocks are treated very well as long as you hold them for a year. So, like I said before, if you can't beat them, join them.
The man is Carl Icahn, a Wall Street legend who made a name for himself as a corporate raider. Now it looks like the raider is getting raided. A month ago, Carl Icahn was worth $25 billion, making him the 58th richest person on Earth. Today, his net worth is $8 billion and falling. And it's all because Hindenburg Research, a tiny 10-person research organization headed by Nate Anderson, released a scathing report against Icahn. Here's what's going on. So Carl Icahn runs a company called Icahn Enterprises. And it's essentially a holding company that owns a mix of assets, things like real estate, private businesses, and publicly traded stocks.
So basically, it's very similar. So for those of you not into the stock market, it's basically like Berkshire Hathaway from what I can assume. Now, I don't know fully about Berkshire Hathaway, but it sounds similar because they own a lot of stocks in a lot of companies.
But the biggest
I think they also do stuff too, but I'm not too sure.
Holding of Icahn Enterprises is a stake in Carl Icahn's private investment fund. This fund only has 3 direct investors: Carl Icahn himself, his son Brett, and the company Icahn Enterprises. The fund's goal is to make money through activist investing, which is a nicer
investing. What is this bullcrap?
Sounding term for what used to be called corporate raiding. This is when an investor takes a big stake in a company and then actively pushes for changes in things like its management or operations in order to unlock value and generate higher returns for shareholders. Now, Carl Icahn has a reputation of being a fierce activist investor who corporate executives fear. When he buys into a company, he often pushes for aggressive changes that sometimes include the firing of CEOs or other executives. Over the years, he's tussled with companies including McDonald's, Texaco, and eBay, and he's made a lot of money doing it. There's even been movies made about Carl Icahn's exploits. So that's a big part of why people invested in Icahn Enterprises stock. By investing in the stock, you get exposure to this activist fund that's run by Carl, and you get exposure to the other assets that he invests in, like I said, real estate and various public and private businesses.
So it's almost like an ETF, essentially. An ETF is a basket of different funds you can invest into all at once. So this is one thing that I've noticed that happens as time goes on. And it's basically becoming a question of when, not if. And that's, when are we going to find out when a billionaire is doing some shady bullshit? So I don't know what the big aha moment is. I don't know what the big reveal is yet. But obviously, as we can tell, it's not good. Since Carl Icahn lost like how many billions of dollars worth of his value in a month. So, excuse me, Jesus Christ. Oh God. Excuse me, Jesus Christ. Anyway, Carl Icahn, much similar to, and I'm always going to bring this up, to the guy who owned, what was that stupid crypto scam that happened? FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried. I remember I saw a video about Sam Bankman-Fried saying, "This guy's the nicest billionaire ever. Oh my God, he's so different from all the other ones. He's a saint, he's an angel. Look how nice he is. He's just a regular dude." And realistically speaking, we know what happened with that. So these billionaires are more and more trying to, pose themselves as the regular person. And this is where my media degree from college really comes in handy. It lets me see through a lot of the bullshit. It doesn't let me do anything else, I'll tell you what. So, damn, the steak is good. But essentially, a lot of these billionaires, because they're so secluded and because they're so divorced from society, they are trying to find a way to not, I guess, integrate themselves back in, but basically convince you that they're not different. And again, look at Sam Bankman-Fried. He's not the only one. Look at Jeffrey Epstein's little black book, right? A lot of billionaires were on that list, including our president. So it's basically becoming a question of when, not if, we're going to find out some fucked up shit that these billionaires are doing. And it's honestly scary to me that almost every billionaire that's out now, I honestly don't think any of them are innocent. Maybe a couple of them, maybe a small minority, but a large majority of them are doing something like crazy.
It's essentially a way to invest alongside Carl Icahn, who has this iconic reputation on Wall Street. But you see, Carl Icahn isn't the only reason that people invested in Icahn Enterprises stock. It also offered a massive dividend to investors. The dividend is $2 per quarter, which if you use the price that Icahn Enterprises stock traded out before the Hindenburg report came out, equals a 15% annualized yield. At today's lower stock price, the yield is 35%. Obviously, that's a very attractive dividend yield, and you can see why so many people would be interested in investing in something that pays 15% or more per year. But what Hindenburg discovered is that the yield on Icahn Enterprises stock wasn't funded by profits, as dividend yields usually are, but by stock sales. Since 2014, Icahn Enterprises has had negative free cash flow of $4.9 billion. Yet it's paid out $1.5 billion of cash dividends. How did it do it? By selling stock. This is what Hindenburg referred to as a Ponzi-like structure. Icahn Enterprises sold stock to new investors in return for cash, and then it turned around and used that cash to pay dividends to existing investors. No value was created. It was just cash going from one set of investors to another set of investors. Now this...
So basically, it's like he said, so for those of you that are confused, because it's going over a lot of stuff from the stock market, it's basically like this. Through generating profit, through selling something, or through, providing a service, you're going to make money. But instead of making money through anything, this guy provides literally nothing, but is selling you the stock, which you're buying, right? It's not a service, it's a stock. And he's using the money you're using to buy that stock and giving it to the people who already own the stock. So if people stop buying the stock, there will be no more dividends that's going to be able to be given out, because that's the main way that the dividends are given out, not through selling a business, a service, or anything, through new people coming in and funding the old people who are already in. Very much like a Ponzi scheme.
This worked for a couple of reasons. One is that Carl Icahn owns 85% of Icahn Enterprises stock, and he's agreed to take his dividends not in cash, but in additional stock. That meant that the company only had to raise enough money through stock sales to pay cash dividends to the other 15% of shareholders, which is a much smaller amount of money than if it had to pay cash dividends to 100% of shareholders. But Icahn wasn't foregoing cash dividends out of the kindness of his heart. He was getting additional stock to make up for the cash that he was foregoing, and because Icahn Enterprises was paying such a high dividend yield, it attracted a lot of investors who bid the stock up to exorbitant levels. Before the Hindenburg report came out, Icahn Enterprises stock was trading at more than 3 times the value of its underlying assets, which was perfect for the company because it could easily sell stock and keep this scheme going. But that raises the question, why was it doing this? Why bother selling stock to raise cash only to send that cash right back into the hands of shareholders? Well, Hindenburg argues that Carl Icahn wanted an inflated stock price so he could use it as collateral to borrow money. The higher the stock price, the more money that lenders like Morgan Stanley would let Carl Icahn borrow. Now, it may seem odd that a billionaire would need to borrow money, but there's a couple of reasons why he might want to or need to do that. First, most of his net worth, 85% of it, is tied up in Icahn Enterprises stock, but he can't easily sell the stock because it would be very difficult to do so without negatively impacting the price. And
I was about to say that too, so this guy beat me to the punch because I had fucking Cheetos mac and cheese in my mouth. If he has 85% of the stock and he starts selling some of his stock, the price is going to go down and it's not going to look as good. And then the whole Ponzi scheme falls apart. Because if other people, not him, stop investing, then the current people don't get their dividends and then the whole thing falls apart.
And he wants to keep the stock price high. Borrowing money using the stock as collateral enables him to raise cash without selling stock. And that's exactly what he's done. Carl Icahn has borrowed billions of dollars over the past several years, and guess what he's done with it? He's put it into his activist fund. You see, despite Carl Icahn's reputation as a brilliant investor, his activist fund has performed horribly over the past decade, largely because of bearish bets against the market. Carl Icahn expected the market to go down, but it's gone up, and his bad bets have resulted in a 53% loss for the fund since 2014. So by borrowing money, Carl Icahn was able to replenish the investment fund's coffers, giving it more firepower to launch its activist campaigns. Because after all, no company is going to take an activist investor seriously unless that investor has enough money to buy up a lot of stock and throw their weight around. So this scheme that Carl Icahn was orchestrating, selling stock and then turning around and paying out cash and dividends, was a way for him to keep Icahn Enterprises stock high so he could use the stock as collateral to borrow money, which he...
Bro, I swear to God, you know those movies where it's like about the people in Wall Street who are like making massive amounts of money, but they're under massive amounts of stress. They're drinking, they're doing drugs. They're like, they have people out to get them to like kill them and stuff, like mafia style. This is fucking why. Excuse me. Once people find out this guy's doing this, people are gonna want blood. You do not mess with people's money, especially high up people.
He could then put into his activist fund to make up for bad investments that the fund had made. It was a pretty convoluted process, but it was working for years until Hindenburg uncovered it and released their report. Now the scheme is at risk of falling apart because...
This is the exact same thing I'm trying to do with the Dark Dimension series, where I'm trying to show the schemes of the world, of the Dark Dimension, so hopefully they fall apart.
Because it depends on Icahn Enterprises stock staying high. If the stock drops, well, Carl Icahn could have some big problems. And unfortunately for him, that's exactly what's been happening. Since the Hindenburg report came out, Icahn Enterprises stock has fallen by more than 50%. But even after its decline, the stock is trading at a premium of more than 40% compared to the value of its assets, suggesting that there could be more downside to come. Making matters worse, if Icahn Enterprises stock falls enough, it could trigger margin calls for Carl Icahn. Remember how I said that Carl Icahn has borrowed money using his shares of Icahn Enterprises as collateral? That's known as a margin loan. The way margin loans work is the borrower needs to keep the value of the collateral above a certain threshold. If they don't, they could get a margin call. So as the price of Icahn Enterprises stock has fallen, Carl Icahn's collateral has decreased in value.
So basically, here's the way it's being described. Carl Icahn will go to Morgan Stanley, which is a bank or a creditor, right? And he will say, hey, I don't have the money, but I have this much worth of stock, which I'm willing to put up. And if things go bad, I'll give the stock to you, which is worth 100 billion, right? And Morgan Stanley more than is happy to do this because they're fucking money grubbing. They salivate at the mouth for this shit. So they're like, okay, sure, we'll take this amount of stock that's equal to 1 billion now, or 100 billion, whatever, and we'll do whatever you want to do. We'll give you some money, right? So they give him money. The stock price falls. What if the stock he's gonna give them is now less than 100 billion? Or like the amount of stock he has will not equate to 100 billion. At that point, Morgan Stanley is going to be like, yo, we gonna want your fucking kneecaps and your kidneys, bitch.
He's had to post more and more of his shares as collateral for his loans. A couple of weeks ago, the company came out and said that Carl Icahn had posted 65% of his shares as collateral for loans. The concern is if the stock keeps dropping in value, at some point Carl Icahn's lenders might force him to sell his stock to repay his loans.
And if he sells his stock, that price is going to plummet because he owns 85% of it.
That could lead to an even sharper drop in the stock, leading to more forced selling in a vicious cycle. So this could be really bad for Carl Icahn, but it's not his only problem. A day after the Hindenburg report came out, federal prosecutors opened an investigation into Icahn Enterprises. As of today, they haven't charged the company with any wrongdoing, but prosecutors may be looking into certain allegations made in the Hindenburg report that I haven't talked about yet. The report points to several suspicious instances when Icahn Enterprises marks the value of its assets at prices well above what they should have reasonably been valued at.
Surprise, surprise. Lying. Yo, when it rains, it pours. This guy's getting shot on. I mean, at the end of the day, right? He's still going to be good because he probably has millions of dollars, like, saved away, tucked away, doing something. Like, I'm pretty sure this isn't his one egg in one basket. He probably has multiple eggs in multiple baskets. But, like, Jesus Christ, man, this guy is eating shit.
One example.
I'm good because he's a fucker. He's a fucker. He's a fuckhead billionaire.
Hindenburg said that Icahn Enterprises kept the value of its real estate portfolio essentially unchanged over the past several years, even though one of its biggest properties, the Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City, was demolished in 2021. In another example, Icahn Enterprises marked the value of its stake in a publicly traded meatpacking company at a $243 million valuation, even though it was worth only $89 million based on where the stock was trading in the public stock market, which
I wonder if it's the same meatpacking company from South America that was selling us tainted meat.
Everyone could see. So these are all concerning things. And when you combine them with that whole margin loan scheme I talked about earlier, it's not surprising that shares of Icahn Enterprises have been plunging ever since the Hindenburg report came out. For his part, Carl Icahn has come out and blasted Hindenburg. He and his company have come out and said that the research organization is, quote, wantonly destroying property and harming innocent civilians, which sounds a little bit hyperbolic if you ask me. Of course,
it's so ironic. It's so ironic that this guy's scheme is getting exposed. He's like, "Oh look, you're hurting all the people because now my stock is falling and they own my stock and you're hurting them."
Of course, we've heard things like these before. In January, after Hindenburg released a report accusing India's richest man, Gautam Adani, of fraud, he and his company.
Okay, I just want to say something right here. This guy, Gautam Adani,
accusing India's richest man, Gautam Adani.
This guy looks like a fucking James Bond evil movie villain.
A fraud. He and his company fired back, accusing Hindenburg of being the Madoffs of Manhattan and of attacking India itself.
Yo, this is fucking crazy. When you're right, people will like just blame everything on you. They'll call you a racist, prejudiced, homophobic, transphobic, race-phobic, anything. Like, oh, you're just saying I'm doing fucked up shit because I'm Indian. No, it's because you're doing fucked up shit. Oh, you're just saying it because I'm black, white, Asian. No, it's because you're doing fucked up shit. Hindenburg seems to be on a fucking roll.
As of today, Adani's net worth is still down $60 billion or 50% from where it was before the Hindenburg report came out. So Hindenburg is used to taking this kind of heat from some of the richest people in the world. This time around, it just so happens to be Carl Icahn, a man who made his name and fortune holding corporate insiders accountable for mismanagement and questionable behavior. Now the tables have turned and he's the one being held accountable for questionable behavior, which is kind of ironic. So we'll see what happens. Is Icahn gonna go broke? Probably not. In the worst case, he'll be forced to sell his stock, maybe at very depressed prices. But unless there's some hidden landmines we don't know about, he'll still probably come out of this a billionaire. He just won't be nearly as wealthy as he once was, and he'll probably be embarrassed that his reputation as a brilliant investor took a hit because of Hindenburg's findings. That's it for now. Follow for more investing insights.
This is fucking crazy. And this is the sad part. When you're that rich, it doesn't matter what you do. And it doesn't really matter that they're losing this amount of money, because them losing the money wouldn't be an issue. It's their reputation they care more about. They could care less about the money. At a certain point, the money brings reputation. It doesn't matter if you have 40 billion or 400 billion, as long as you have more than the other guy. So it's really sad, but this is basically exposing how fucked Wall Street is, how fucked stocks are, and how fucked the rich people are. Very nice video. Let's go next.
So how have the vibes been lately? Low key? Off. Go off, King. I just feel like life's been mad cringe lately.
It has.
Like, instead of taking W's, I'm taking L's.
Big L's.
And how's your Riz?
0.
Mid.
0.
No cap? On God.
On God, for real, for real.
It's giving depression.
Oh!
Dead ass? Dead ass.
Dead ass.
Facts. That's facts. No printer. Period.
So I included this one as the comedic section. Oh my god, Microsoft 365 responded to this. So, you know, this is where I think a good thing going forward with the workplace, and I have a little anecdote here personally, is once the workplace, and especially our government, gets replaced and we cycle out the dinosaurs and the fossils with the millennials and the Gen Zs and not the boomers, I think things are going to be a lot better because we understand each other. I think millennials and Gen Zs can typically get along, although Gen Zs are kind of shooting back at millennials now. And I'm the first generation of Gen Z, like I am the beginning of Gen Z, so I feel a little closer to millennials than anything. I feel like an old man, believe it or not, at 25 years old. But this is where I hope for the future things will get better, because we know the struggle, we're going through it, and as I show multiple times in this series, we're all fucked in the newer generation, so hopefully we can have some heart for each other. But yeah, no, this is pretty funny, and I know all of these slang, but I feel like I shouldn't, like I feel too old to know these, but I know all of these, so it's really cool. Anyway, very nice little comedic video. I hope that brightened everyone's day just a little bit before I make it a little bit worse.
What sort of government is it that can't guarantee a cent, a single cent, for public and affordable housing, but can guarantee $254 billion for everyone in this place to get $9,000 extra a year on tax? They can guarantee $41 billion for fossil fuel subsidies. They can guarantee $16 billion in tax concessions for property investors, but they can't guarantee a cent for public and affordable housing in the middle of the worst housing crisis we have seen in generations.
So again, this is showing something I've shown many times before. The rich look out for themselves, they'll pay themselves more, they'll give themselves raises, when the majority of the outside population that's not them is suffering.
A Labor member over there just before told me to grow up. Grow up.
Ooh.
And if you think that your strategy is to tell everyone in this country it's immature to think that in one of the wealthiest countries in the world we can't put a roof over everyone's head, if you think it's a strategy to call people immature because we think it's wrong that you're raising more money from charging interest on student debt than you are from raising taxes on gas corporations, if you think it's a good strategy to tell everyone in this country that it's immature to expect that while politicians in this place are about to get a $9,000 extra a year off on their tax, we think no one in this country should be forced to live on poverty payments. How dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you? And the strategy that you resort to is lying to the Australian public. Now, if you're watching at home, here's the strategy that they're deploying. Here's the strategy they're deploying. They are trying to crush your hope. They're trying to crush your hope.
They have.
What they're trying to do to you right now is to say this is all you can hope for. And if you hope for anything else, and if anyone comes out and says, you know what? When you can find $4.2 billion for a surplus, maybe we should be spending $5 billion a year on public and affordable housing, you'll get attacked for it. They're trying to bash you down until there is nothing left for you to hope for.
It's worked.
But you know what? The reality is that the reason they're doing it is not for technical or policy reasons. There's not actually any reason we couldn't tax big corporations and make sure we build enough public and affordable housing in this country. The private construction industry is in decline. We could be using those skills and construction materials to build public and affordable housing. We could be freezing rent increases, the same that countries around the world have done and Australia has done before. We could do that. But the reason they don't want to do it is because really they're on the side of the banks and property developers who make enormous profits in this country. Here's the deal.
This is the problem. At what point is it enough? This is where, again, this shows another evil thing about humans, about people. Enough is never enough. There will never be a limit. There's never a limit to greed. Greed is unbound. It's infinite. So these people will keep trying to suck up and siphon as much wealth as they can through student debt, through loans, through taxes, through mortgages, through anything they can. And they don't care how they do it. And the worst part is that money equals power. So the more of it they get, the more of it they want, and the more they can affect the rules and the politicians. And through that, it becomes, again, a vicious cycle where more and more of us are going to be out on the curb while less and less of them are going to be at the top. And eventually it's going to hit a tipping point. It really is. I don't know when, but the way these things are going is it's going to hit a tipping point. And you can only delude us. You can only mask the truth. You can only spin it so much before enough of us are out on the curb. And some of us are going to be smart enough to notice and convince the rest of them. And we're all going to be so bad off that the rest of them are going to listen. It's going to get to a point where it's, I think it's going to happen.
In this budget, they're guaranteeing money for property developers and tax concessions to build apartments that when Mirvac built them, Mirvac, by the way, the outgoing CEO of Mirvac, if you're wondering, is also the person they're appointing ahead of their National Supply and Affordability Council. What a sick joke. Anyway, they charged for those apartments.
It's all fucking corrupt.
It's 20% above market rent. Above market rent. Above market rent.
This guy's
well, guess
pissed.
what? No one in this country is going to take that for much longer.
Thank
if
God.
you think your strategy is to yell and abuse and attack anyone who asks for more,
Yeah,
if
they're
your strategy
yelling,
is that,
bruh.
listen to that.
Holy
You've got another
shit.
thing coming because there's enough people in this country now who are screwed over by a
Yup.
political system that snarls and attacks anyone who asks for more. While we just
Yeah, more than the bare minimum. That's not even the bare minimum anymore.
seen the banks record tens of billions of dollars in profit.
It's
if anyone
so
thinks that's
sad.
normal, and if you're going to go around and
Look at the
call
little old lady like nodding in agreement next to him.
the Greens radicals for suggesting that in a wealthy country like this, the fact that the banks are making billions of dollars in profit while the government can't guarantee a cent for public and affordable housing is moderate, you've got an absolute another thing coming. The only radicals in this place are the ones who think doing that is sustainable.
Yeah,
the only radicals in this
they're
place are the ones who
insane.
think that it's okay to give yourselves $9,000 extra a year off on your tax while telling people they have to live on $52 a day.
Bruh.
What a sick joke. We had someone come into our office, a woman who had just had her rent jacked up by $120 a week.
Weak?
$120 a week.
Oh
And,
my God.
This person is on Centrelink payments, unemployed long term because of a debilitating heart condition, but unable to get on DSP. After rent, bills and food, he literally did not have the money to pay the $70 train trip to get home to be with her. When my team told him we'd transfer him $100 immediately so he could book the ticket straight away and
This
buy
is
some food for the trip,
sad.
he broke down weeping. He spent 2 full days desperately pleading with Centrelink to give him an urgent payment. And you stand here and you think that it's good enough to give yourselves tax cuts while this is happening to people in this country. How dare you?
Oh my God. Oh my God. See, this is the worst part, right? One thing I also hope to do with this series is to just open people's eyes. Now, people, I think, subconsciously know that a lot of this stuff is happening. They know it's out there, but it's one thing to know in the back of your head, and it's one thing to push it to the forefront and see it. Last episode, we had the really, really good movie. Oh, God, I forgot what it was called, but I did write it down. It was the one that came out in 1991 that basically showed, like, the dystopian future of, like, senior care in Japan, where it's like, oh my God, once it gets pushed to the forefront, it's so sad. And remember, these are the things we see. Imagine how many things we don't. Oh my God, this is where I have this belief that there's so much more bad in the world than there is good. And people are hopeful, and I'm not trying to shit on people's hope, but I do think it's important to know the reality. And the reality is, I think there's a lot more bad than good. And once we realize that, once we recognize that, we can stop living in this hopeful delusion and hopefully change things. Now, who am I to say to change things when I do nothing but sit here and react to TikToks? But, hopefully something good can happen. But again, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, so who knows. But anyway, very nice video. As we can see, it's not only America that's struggling with housing, although in America it's pretty fucking bad. It's other places like Australia too, a very first world country.
Let's go back in time to buy a house. In 1983, I'm an average person looking to buy an average house.
Okay, that's me.
I got this average degree, which I got for free.
Oh, shit.
And work an average job.
That's insane. The average income is 20K, right? So 20K will assume half of your income, right, is going to expenses, and you're really trying hard to save, right? You're trying hard to save. You're living with your parents or a friend or a family member. Excuse me. You're only spending on what you need to, and you're trying to save money. You're saving away, let's just say 10K for a house. And a house is 64,000 or 65,000, whatever it said there. In 6 years, you're gonna have a house.
After paying tax and rent.
And let's just say you save only 5,000. After how many years are you gonna have a house? 12 at that point? That's insane.
If I save 50% of the remainder, it'll take me 2 years to save up.
Look, he's doing the math for us.
With a 20% deposit. Remember that as we head back to 2023, and I'm still an average person looking to buy an average house.
Damn, I might name this episode The Housing Crisis, because this is fucking crazy how much we're getting to this shit.
Got this average degree.
Oh, yeah, no, that's not the average debt. The average debt is probably way worse.
And I have an average job. After paying.
The average job, by the way, averages are a little misleading, right? Because the averages get skewed very highly up by the rich people, right? Don't take the average, take the median. The median is way more indicative of the reality.
Tax, rent, and HEX have...
See, this is why I don't like using averages, because again, they're really jacked up from like the extremes and the outliers.
If I save 50% of the remainder, it'll take me 10.5 years to save up for the 20% deposit. It's clear that it's not just lazy, layabout young people sipping latte that's causing the problem. It would take me 84 years to save up enough money if I skip having a latte every day just for the deposit. I don't have 84 years left. In 40 years, the average house price has increased by 14 times, whereas full-time salaries have only increased by 4.7 times. Another way of looking at it is, houses used to cost 3 times the salary, and now they cost 10 times. All things being equal, you'd have to be making $300,000 a year to benefit from that same 3 times ratio. You might be thinking $90,000, wow, that's high. It is. That's because CEOs and vice chancellors have millions inflate the total pool of income and skew the average high. If we look
He said it. He actually said it too. Holy shit.
at the median, that is the figure in the middle of
he's saying everything I said. This could show I'm not crazy. Even though I am.
all figures, that's around 48,000.
Yup, that's closer to the average. And to put it to you this way, right? I'm in New York where they have to have a very high minimum wage comparatively. So I think federally, the minimum wage is what? $7.25, which is like a joke. In New York, it's $15, which is a joke. Or in NYC, rather, right? It's $15 is a joke. I make about $18.50. So my income, and this is all before tax and everything, right? So my income, let me just do some quick maths here. It's about $38,500. This is pretty close to $48K. Now, you give me that extra $10K, I'm gonna be feeling it. Where it goes back to what was said in the previous video in the comments, which I forgot to read out, but that $9,000 to them, to the politicians, to the bank owners and stuff, to the people that are high up, that $9,000 means almost nothing to them. But as you go lower, as you're poorer, that $9,000 could make a world of difference. The less you have, the more it matters. And it's so sad. The more you have, the less it matters. But yeah, no, this $48,000, I could definitely see this being actually around the middle.
So if you're making more than that, you're making more than 50% of all working people in Australia.
I'm making
still, housing
less.
is so far out of reach.
Oh, damn, this is Australia again.
And it's going to take me a bit longer than one video to explain. In part 2, I'm going to explain the cause. And part 3, the solution.
Yeah, and we're not going to see those.
Please hit all these buttons on the right-hand side. And together, we're going to get to the bottom of this housing crisis, and maybe we can fix it.
Maybe, and hopefully we can fix it through the Dark Dimension series. But anyway, really nice video. So again, it shows the housing market is not only broken, not in the US, but also in Australia.
Why aren't we attacking corporate profit in any way?
Because they brainwash us and they own the media, which basically inputs ideas into people's minds into basically not making them the villains.
Because that's been estimated to be 30% of inflation, 40% of inflation.
I don't think it's a tenable view that all of a sudden corporations became greedy.
They did.
Of course, there's monopolies in the economy, John, and we should be for
They've been
much
bragging
more
about it on
much
their
more
earnings
aggressive
calls.
than we were.
They're on their earnings calls, they're saying
Record profits.
our profits have never been higher.
Yep.
We're killing it. The markups during the pandemic are sometimes they're saying 70% of what they were.
If there was a huge increase in the demand for shrewd television commentary, I imagine the demand for what you do would go way up. And I imagine you'd convert that into higher wages and getting more and getting paid better.
You're saying it's the market at work.
I don't think you'd call yourself a gouger when you...
I would absolutely call myself a gouger.
When you did that.
And by the way, the effect of the talk show business is very different than the effect of ExxonMobil.
Big facts. ExxonMobil is ruining the planet. They are probably hydrofracking. They are probably like, you know, oh my God, I was going to say a really bad word, but I'm glad I didn't. They are probably going to other countries and robbing them of their natural resources, oil. And, you know, they're probably doing really fucked up shit, not only for the environment, but for other countries too. They're very exploitative. They're very evil. But, you know, you need gas in your car, right? So.
Right? I mean, let's be fair.
Isn't this show going to be on Apple TV?
Correct.
And I think Apple TV is worth about 5 times as much as Exxon.
I mean, Apple is the most profitable like corporation in the world, so
I think Apple's price since the stimulus began, Apple's value has gone up by about 1.2 trillion
insane
dollars.
Right.
That's
insane.
$4,000 for every American. Just an increase in the value of Apple.
You just made
How the fuck can he know that? How the fuck does he know that off his dome?
my point for me.
Do you feel that Apple is somehow gouging or doing something wrong?
Yes, of course. And Exxon is, and Mobil is.
So let's talk about Apple. Let's talk about Apple. Do you think Apple
He looked like he was so done with that shit. Okay.
should just sell phones for less and
No, they should. Well, obviously, don't get crazy with the pricing, but just pay your employees more.
not have enough phones?
A lot of the problem is they're pocketing it at the top. Any profits that they're making are going only towards the top. It's not trickling down. The whole problem with trickle-down economics is it's not trickling down anymore.
What would you have Apple do?
You're saying to me, John, market forces are market forces. And if demand goes up, are you suggesting, young man, that Apple should charge less than they could charge? Let me
This
flip
guy's smiling like a villain.
that on you. When there's a tightness in the labor market, what you're saying is the workers shouldn't do the same. That the workers, just following the same capitalistic principles that
Fuck capitalism.
allow Apple to charge more for their phones, shouldn't charge more because wage inflation is driving inflation.
That's not at all what I'm saying, John.
That's exactly what you're saying.
Actually,
Yeah, so this isn't crazy. This is just crazy. Like, excuse me. This is where I think a lot of the rich people even delude themselves into just believing these false realities of, you know, it's not our fault. This is just how things are. This is how things are supposed to be. No. Enough is never enough for them.
Good morning, bad news! The Supreme Court just destroyed the ability for workers to go on strike as the American labor system descends.
Yo, they've been doing this, not only the Supreme Court, but Biden too.
...into modern feudalism and wage slavery. This ruling by the ultra-conservative and illegitimately appointed Supreme Court says that companies can sue unions if strikes result in property damage. The only property damage in this case was a few dollars worth of wet concrete that was wasted when workers went on strike. The absurdity of this case is a clear, deliberate, and insulting effort to make striking illegal while bankrupting unions with frivolous lawsuits by multi-billion-dollar corporations in exactly the same way that they're trying to make protesting illegal over alleged and minor property damage. Because
okay, like, protesting, and this is where it gets into a very heavy debate, right? Protesting should be peaceful, but as I've said again multiple times, peaceful doesn't really lead to problems getting solved. I'm not advocating for violence, I'm just saying how I see it. So, this is where, you know, obviously when there's a protest, people are going to get wild and rowdy because we're humans, we're wild and rowdy, and things are going to break, but to outlaw it completely is kind of but also in the first place they shouldn't be doing it, but if they don't do it, things aren't going to change. But this is where I think overall unions, while they're very, very important, I think they're eventually becoming outdated, or they're basically losing the power they once had, because these corporations are so strong, they have so much money. Again, unions have the power of influencing the worker, right? But we're getting to a point where the economy is so bad that people need to work to live, and the unions can't support these people. So take it like this, right? Starbucks has more money than ever to not only fight the unions to close the stores if they need to keep people out of a job, they can also go to the government, influence the government through lobbying, through the endless money they have, to change the rules in their favor. What can the union do? The union can basically say, okay, we're not going to work your stores. Like I just said, Starbucks can close them anyway for a while until like they need to reopen them, which who knows when that's going to be because they have so much money to rest on. And if anything, people still need to work, they still need to eat. So there's going to be someone who has to take the Starbucks job if they even keep it open. It's fucking crazy.
Because over the past 2 years of increasingly severe labor inequality, workers have been successfully going on strike all around the country to force their employers to the bargaining table, which is exactly how it's supposed to work. But because this new neo-imperial Supreme Court is openly owned by the ultra-wealthy and their only goal is to crush the working class into a...
Yes, Clarence Thomas laughing as he gets hundreds of thousands in bribery.
And their rulings and behavior have been judicially inconsistent other than being anti-worker, which is especially horrifying for those just starting their careers, because having zero leverage means companies can basically pay you minimum wage forever with no benefits or career advancement, because without bargaining power, your only alternative is to starve.
Yep. So this is where Good Morning Bad News is very, very polarizing, at least to me. I don't even care if it's to anyone else, it's to me. Like, this guy, I mean, he actually lists his sources, which is more than what most people do. But still, the big question I have is, this guy sounds very like conspiracy theorist. He sounds very like crazy. Whether he is or not, I don't know, but take it with a grain of salt. But, you know, if what he says is true, with some of it, you know, obviously is, but he's obviously twisting it or spinning it in a certain way to fit his narrative. It's very scary, man. It's very, very scary. Like, again, the common theme is what happens is the rich just influence everything, and it's a losing battle if you're not rich. But if you're rich, you become evil. So it's like, what can you do? Or if you're rich, you can't fight every other rich person. Like, it's just impossible.
It's just an ordinary bridge.
It's not just a bridge, it's ominous.
Oh. Ominous? What do you think's gonna happen?
Oh. Whoa. Oh, it's Cheeseman!
It's just an ordinary...
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know why the fuck I included this. I guess because I thought things were really sad. But, yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed that. I thought this was gonna have some sort of a meaning or something behind it. I usually sometimes question, why the fuck do I send myself these things? I don't really know why I said this, but it was kind of funny.
This is wild. People in the UK are set to receive a universal basic income for the first time ever in a 2-year trial. If you didn't know...
I hate the fact that we're only hearing that it's a trial. This is where I'm very sad and I'm very happy at the same time for different reasons of why I was born when I was born. I was born where probably near the end, or at least ending of my life, you know, in the later stages of my life, is when we're going to be dealing with a lot of big problems. That's not really going to be my problem, it's going to be the next generation's problem. I sound like the government now, don't I? Where, you know, the fight for natural resources, the fight for clean air, the fight for clean water, and stuff that's very core to living is going to be an issue, a big issue, I believe. You know, climate change, all that stuff, the environment, that's going to be big issues that need to get solved or else. And that's kind of going to appear, I would say, near the later stages of my life, if not sooner. But it's really not going to be my problem because most of my life is done anyway, at least hopefully. So this is where UBI, I'm sad that I am where I am in life and I was born when I was born, because by the time this thing ever gets enacted, I think I'll either be at the later stages of my life where it doesn't matter anymore, or I'll be dead. So it's a little sad because this thing, I think, is just the next step in economic policy, I think, around the world, especially, as I've said before, with AI coming out. With AI coming out, and, you know, with the way the rich are going to abuse it and use it, they're going to obviously use it way more than workers, because you can have it running 24/7. You don't need to pay it like healthcare benefits or anything. It's not going to take off, and it's going to be the most efficient all the time, and it's going to generate you so much more profit than a regular worker. You're going to fire a regular worker and just hire the AI unless the government steps in, but why would they step in? They're owned by the rich. So it basically is going to lead to a big swath of very low income, low menial job workers basically getting axed and having nowhere else to go. There's going to be fewer and fewer jobs and more people that need it. At that point, you need a UBI to carry them. There's not going to be enough jobs for everyone.
No, universal basic income is a regular government cash payment that every individual, rich, poor, employed, unemployed, all receive without any conditions.
See, this is where I question, like, why should we give it to the rich? Now, this is where, again, going back to the $9,000 like tax cut thing for the rich people in Australia, $9,000 for them doesn't really do anything, right? Like, oh, look at Elon Musk. If Elon Musk loses 50 million, that's almost nothing to him. Like, he might not even notice it, right? So, at this point, why give it to the rich? Where, you know, it's unfair to not give it to everyone, but at that point, that's the whole point. Life is unfair. Some people need it more than others. I don't think anyone who makes over or has over $1 million in assets, and this number can obviously change, but they should not get the UBI and they should give more of it to everyone else.
Not a new idea, but because of things like the pandemic, climate change, AI trying to steal our jobs, started picking up a lot of momentum, to the point where now 30 people who can actually put themselves forward for will be paid a significant £1,600 a month without
that's not bad.
Any requirement to work or even...
I mean, it's not enough to really live, but it's not bad. That could definitely help. If you have a part-time job, or, you know, dare I say a full-time job, and you have that, you can actually live.
Demonstrate your willingness to work. And if you heard that and you immediately thought about quitting your job, that's where things get interesting. Because the director of the think tank running the scheme said that they want...
Yeah, so this is where I'm assuming, right? I don't remember for sure, but I'm assuming people are still going to work because they want to make and save as much money as possible, and this is helping them do that. It's a different thing to be forced to work. When you're forced to work, you're forced to work. But you're still going to probably want to work because it's in your best interest. 1,600 British pounds, I'm assuming, I'm going by American standards here, is probably not enough to live. Maybe you could do it if you get somewhere really cheap, but you're going to be living like shit. And this is the thing I always said. I actually, with my friends, always said the government should give out a base amount of money to guarantee you the bare necessities. The shittiest form of housing, shitty food, obviously not food to make you sick, but like very bland, normal food, excuse me, housing and everything else, right? But at the bare minimum, to where the only people who will settle and accept that are Cretans. There will be people who accept it, but you're going to have people, no matter what, who are going to take advantage of it. It's just going to be the minority, or, you know, we hope it's the minority. This is where that amount will basically be a good backdrop for you, you know, to where you won't starve and be on the street, but you're going to want to work, and you will work because you want things to be better than the bare minimum that's shitty. It's shitty, but it's still better than, you know, what it is currently. So this is where I always said this, and I'm assuming that's what they're going to say here.
Wanted to study the effect this unconditional lump sum has on people's mental and physical health, incentives to work, and general standard of living. And if the results turn out positive, use this evidence base to push for national implementation. However, for UBI to actually work on a national scale, there would need to be a significant rise in the amount of income tax that everyone pays. But that then creates this potentially catastrophic scenario where you're actually decreasing the incentives for people to work, while simultaneously increasing the incentives for them not to work. So
I like how they showed a guy in his bed just smoking a fucking vape. Like, that's the view people have of what you do if you don't work.
Not to work. So let's do a little test now. If you got paid an additional $1,600 a month wherever you are.
Okay, so it's $2,000 USD. Honestly, that's near what I make a month. Holy shit. Honestly, I would still work as long as I could. Maybe not full-time, maybe part-time. Just because, like, I would be able to save so much money invested in the market and just be able to, like, have a backdrop if my job ever fires me, if I ever get, like, sick of it.
In the world, working the job that you're currently in, but your income was taxed, let's say, another 10%. Would you quit your job and live off the monthly payments, or continue working and then use that money for savings?
Yeah, I would do it for savings, I think.
Or to reading the answers.
But honestly, this is where I think people might bullshit. They might say they'll work, but they might not, and who knows, maybe I'm the same, but God, man, I wish UBI would come out already. I fucking hate, like, being so scared monetarily of life. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I hate how much and how dependent I am on money. I hate how much money places value to things in my life. I hate how much I care about money. I love money, I love saving money, and I love making more money, but I hate the fact that it's such a number one thing in my life. It's really disgusting. Anyway, very nice video. Let's go next.
Whether humans should continue to exist on Earth once came down to the vote of one guy.
Oh, okay, so I remember this one. This is one of the videos I actually remember that I sent myself. We've went over this guy before in a nice little TikTok. It's basically the Russian guy in the submarine that prevented nuclear war. This is so good.
Called.
I hope we didn't forget about him, but just in case we did, I want to re-add this back. As dark as this series is, I like to highlight the good, or sometimes highlight the good.
The most dangerous moment in human history, and we didn't even know it happened until 40 years later.
And that's the saddest part. Like, again, there's so many bad things that happen that we don't know about, and there's very important good things that happen that we don't know about that literally saved the world, pretty much. And this is where, again, I still fully believe there's more bad than there is good. But there is good out there.
October 27th, 1962.
It's sad we didn't know about it for so long.
11 days into the Cuban Missile Crisis, the U.S. Navy discovers Soviet submarine B-59 deep underwater. To scare it up, they drop depth charges. The submarine's crew notices these explosions, but they don't know what's going on. One possibility was that fears of a global nuclear exchange have finally come true, and if so, they should launch their own nuclear weapons to join in.
Yup.
But that's the problem, right?
They don't know.
What if there isn't a nuclear war happening above us?
Then they start it.
You know, then launching our weapons could start one.
Yeah.
And not just a little one. A nuclear exchange powerful enough to annihilate at least the entire northern hemisphere of Earth.
Jesus.
However, B-59 is so deep, they have lost all radio contact with Moscow or the rest of the world. That doesn't mean they couldn't launch a nuclear weapon. In a case like that, protocol required a unanimous vote from the 3 highest-ranking people on the ship. The ship's captain, Valentin Savitsky, was convinced they should do it, and the ship's political officer agreed. The pivotal third vote came down to second-in-command, Vasily Arkhipov.
Look at this fucking Chad. Look at Vasily over here. People need to kiss this guy in the mouth. And, you know, like, just imagine, right? If I was saying this back then during, like, the 60s, 70s, 80s, or whatever, you know, big Cold War era, I'd probably be beaten for saying something like that. But it's honestly true. This guy saved us.
Arkhipov hesitated and eventually said no. Let's not do it. Instead of running out of air, they surfaced and exposed themselves to the U.S. Navy, and they were sent home to Moscow. They were
Think about that. The U.S. Navy saw them. They were carrying a fucking nuke. And instead of the U.S. Navy, like, capturing them, which very obviously would have started a war, but the fact that they're in, like, these waters and, like, that didn't start a war is shocking to me. But, like, they literally let them go. The USA, as fucked as we are, and we are very fucked, there's sometimes when we're pretty nice.
In shame. There was a feeling at the time that they should have gone down with their ship instead of surrendering. Arkhipov lived until 1998.
Dude, look at him when he's old. Holy shit.
4 years after his death, a fellow crew member that day finally told the story of what happened.
That's so sad. That's so sad that this was after his death, that this guy, we found out he saved the world.
Our species was spared because one guy voted no.
Just think about that. Just comprehend that for a second. One guy, at the same time he saved us, but in another light, made us continue in this dark dimension. But oh my god, it really is crazy. Like, it's baffling to me that it all came to the decision of this one man, how we are here today.
In 2017, Arkhipov was posthumously given the Future of Life Award, a rare honor given to those who, at risk to themselves, safeguard the future of life on Earth.
Insane.
Whether humans...
Very nice story. I hope we never forget Vasily, because Jesus Christ, like, the magnitude and the balls on this guy. Just imagine, right? Because peer pressure in human psychology is a big thing, right? Like, you tend to agree with those around you, even if you don't really. Peer pressure is a very, very big thing. This guy had the fucking cojones to hear literally explosions above him, not know what's going on, not know if the war started, and tell everyone, nah, let's not shoot, let's go up, hope to God there's not a war, even though we hear explosions, and hope they don't kill us. And they were received in shame too. That's the worst part. For his great act, and this is the thing I hate in this world, these great acts of, like, amazing good are received badly and poorly. Like, these people aren't championed, they're shat on. It's so sad. But, you know, amazing story. God, I love Vasily. Thank you, Vasily. Next. Oh, and look, this is literally it too. No. I like how they gave him a PPSH, but anyway, as you can see here, I'll read it out just to refresh everyone. Vasily Arkhipov prevented a nuclear war between the United States and Soviet Union during the Cuban Missile Crisis by refusing to authorize the launch of a nuclear torpedo. When the Soviet submarine B-59 was surrounded by US Navy ships and subject to depth charges, the commander wanted to retaliate by launching the torpedo. However, Arkhipov, as the second-in-command, argued the depth charges were likely non-lethal and not a direct attack, and he was right. He convinced the other two senior officers on board to agree with him, preventing the launch and avoiding a catastrophic nuclear war. His calm and level-headed decision-making has been credited with the preventing of one of the most dangerous moments in history. Dude, this guy is such a Chad. Anyway.
Target doesn't care if you boycott their stores. They're not afraid of you. They're scared of a much bigger threat. Let me explain. Target's largest shareholders are Vanguard, State Street, and BlackRock. These
yes, BlackRock. Again, funny thing, no joke, this building right here, what you see right here, I walk in front of this every workday. This is a block away from my job, believe it or not. And you know what's crazy too? They actually took off the sign BlackRock. And I've said this in the last episode, I believe, where BlackRock doesn't want you to know who they are. They don't want their name in the news that they own, because they want to remain as anonymous as possible, because that makes it easier for them to do the things they do. Again, they took off the sign BlackRock on their building. You don't know what building it is anymore unless you knew beforehand. That's very intentional because, again, most of the time, the rich corporations want you to know who they are, where they are. BlackRock doesn't. There's a reason for that. I walk by this building. I see this view every day that I work. It is insane. And the BlackRock, words are not there anymore.
These corporations support the Corporate Equality Index, or CEI. This is a rating system for how much American businesses support the LGBT community. If Target's CEO does not support the LGBT community well, then he's not going to be reelected by the shareholders.
If you don't like them enough, you don't get reelected. You're forced to like LGBTQ stuff.
So sometimes corporations like Target push LGBT marketing campaigns, not because they particularly want to or it's good for profits. They do it for a high CEI score. So they face a backlash, maybe they lose a little money. Failing to get a high CEI is way more scary.
Dude, this is insane. Again, the whole background runnings of how things work with these rich people, it's so fucking cool. It's crazy, but it's so cool to me. It's like, what the fuck? Even if you're in corporate, there's higher corporate overlords, which it all goes back to BlackRock as one of them. It's so wild. Anyway, very nice video. Let's go next.
Some big changes have just been announced for anyone who rents a house in the UK. A renters reform bill has just been introduced that firstly puts an end to no-fault evictions. Meaning if your landlord wants to kick you out, now they have to have a justifiable reason.
Oh, you mean before they didn't? Before they could just be like, bye-bye, we don't want you here, later. Which, is very true. They very easily could have just done that at all times. See, this is where it goes into very complicated sides of the fence, where if you own something, right, this is where it's very, very complicated of, hey, this is my property, I own this, I don't want you here anymore. Can you kick someone out when it has to do with housing, when it has to do with something that a lot of people consider a basic need that needs to be met, right? It becomes a very slippery slope. It becomes very, very tricky, because how are you just going to kick someone out like that? It's very, very hard, right? It's very hard. So this is where things get a little tricky, but should people be allowed to kick out someone with no notice? I don't think they should, but it's a hard question to answer because there's an argument for both sides.
In addition, an increase in rent will now only be allowed once a year, and your landlord will have to give you a minimum of 2 months' notice. And good news for pet owners, because landlords will now have to prove why any requests from tenants to have pets are unreasonable.
Honestly, pets really help in life, and remember, with the biggest thing I say in some of the other episodes is loneliness. Loneliness is very bad, and hopefully AI can help it, but pets are a big help to it. If you don't allow a pet in an apartment, what the fuck?
Some are praising these changes, others are warning of catastrophic consequences.
I wonder who. Let's take a guess who's warning of catastrophic consequences. I bet you it's the landlords.
And landlords will
Okay.
And in the market or start selling up, causing a very serious housing crisis. So the question is this good or bad news for you?
I mean, if you live in UK, it's probably good. For everyone else, who knows? Hopefully it's good. But it's hard to say. I don't know. This is where, like, I question, will this really go through? Like, is this actually going through? I don't know. And is it enough? Probably not, but it's a step in the right direction. But, yeah, so not so dark, but pretty good. Excuse me. Let's go next. Oh! Okay, so, let me lower this. This is loud as shit. Corporate memes that make me feel seen. Black History Month begins. Companies, yes, they need that CEI score, whatever it's called. When you forward an email that you were accused of not sending, this is my face when I do this. I love that shit. I keep tabs on everything. They cannot catch me lacking. When a coworker is telling you a story and you're wondering what would happen if you punched them, not gonna lie, this is me a couple times too. Me to my coworkers, let's all communicate and be respectful. Also me, do your fucking job. So this is where, okay, I'm gonna pause the music here, but this is where, ironically enough, I'm on both sides of the fence here. My job currently relies on another person doing their job. They don't do their job a lot, so that hurts my job. And I can't influence them doing their job. They have to do it to make my job easier, which it's not. And I'm there to make their job easier. So essentially, I don't blame them for not working, because who the fuck wants to work, especially in a shitty corporate job? But at the same time, if you don't work, you don't help me, and that makes my life harder. It sucks that no matter what happens, we're interconnected, so you're affecting someone no matter what. But it's like, it's just sad. But anyway, let's go next. Has vacation days, uses vacation days. Yeah, work gets upset at that. Work gets upset we have a life and we're not AI robots that can be, what is it called? Efficient 24/7 for them. Employer pays minimum wage, employee gives minimum effort, and the employer is surprised. This is so, like, iconic, because I really want to do this thing where I force, like, if I was the almighty god, right, if I had the infinity gauntlet, I would snap my fingers, and instead of killing everyone, I would force CEOs to swap places with the lowest paid employee in their company and force them to live on that wage. Like, if you cannot live on that wage, and you're not allowed to quit, you tell me what you can do. You tell me if it's fair. And guarantee you it's not. They're not going to be able to live. Pride Month starts. Billion-dollar companies about to act like they give a fuck. Again, as we just saw with Target, that's true. When you're slightly inconvenienced at work and you start applying to all the random jobs you saw on Indeed, this is not me. I don't want to apply to jobs. I want to just not work. At least not work shitty jobs. You ever catch yourself working too hard at work and be like, let me chill, they're not paying me enough for this? Absolutely. I'll stop saying yes and assert my boundaries at work. Also me when asked to help with a problem that's 100% not mine. This is me too. As much shit as I like to talk, this is me. Corporations deciding what to call their employees instead of compensating them fairly. Awesome family heroes, tough team players, rock stars, the best partners. Dude, it's so sad because, again, all these things are like subconscious things they're doing to us that are trying to make us okay with not being paid a livable wage, and we can see how that's going. A lot of us are not paid livable wages. Me and the boys after endorsing each other's skills on LinkedIn. Damn fucking straight. These look like Call of Duty things. Anyway, that's the last one. Pretty funny video here. We have a lot of comedic ones in here, so I hope people appreciate that. Oh, let's see this one. Blizzard allegedly fires Dev for giving an NPC jokes about corporate greed. 9 years of service up in smoke without question because someone looked at an innocent, I'm assuming that means innocent joke and saw a reflection. They made sure to hustle and get me out before the end of the month in full knowledge that benefits would expire the next day. I wrote jokes lampooning generic corporate greed for a venture company Loot Goblin, which was very in character. But then leadership walked face first into the... Okay, this fucking music sucks. Walked face first into the joke after string lock while my focus was getting the patch done. Because of their embarrassment, I'm no longer at Blizzard. So you could see the character is literally called the Loot Specialist. And I'll read what the Loot Specialist is saying here. All according to plan, another record quarter for revenue. Finders keepers, I saw it first. I thought it was free for all. I've come in below estimates. Let's call this a cost of living adjustment. Looks like another yacht for me. No profit sharing. Like, it's fucking crazy. Funny how it was good enough for marketing and promoting the game before, during, and after I was separated. They took it down after I pointed out the hypocrisy. So yeah, Blizzard's evil. Corporation, billion-dollar corporation's evil. What else is new?
Remember when prices started skyrocketing and we were all like, hey, this is corporate greed, but then we were gaslit by US government officials and economists who said it was all in our heads?
So again, I've said this multiple times at this point, but I'm just going to be repeating myself. And even that is me repeating myself. But yeah, no. At this point, a lot of the population is gaslit into believing the problems are not being caused by those who are actually causing them.
It turns out it's not in our heads. Greed inflation is real. Financial experts were not just denying that corporate profits were causing inflation, they were actually blaming consumers.
Blame your opposing party for the thing you're doing. I'm repeating myself again.
Which is like peak gaslighting. Like toxic boyfriends should study this communication tactic because we all sort of believe the financial experts. Now a lot of financial...
And this is where, again, one of the big fears I have with showing everyone these is I don't fact check these. I don't know these for sure. But like, if all of these are just curated by TikTok because they know I like seeing this shit, they know I interact with the content, so they keep sending it to me even though it's not indicative of the reality, and there's no way to know if I'm truly right or wrong, I believe in this day and age, aside from like getting heavily invested into researching it and knowing, but that's going to take too long and I don't have the patience or money for that or time. So it's like, I'm hoping like all these things they're showing me are true, which, you know, majority of them probably are, but some of them are probably not. But, excuse me. But, you know, I really hope like we're not seeing like mostly bullshit. Just TikTok is showing me because the algorithm knows I like it. Or knows I use it for the show at least.
Experts are like, wait, this greed inflation thing is not a fringe theory. So here's the deal. Even though inflation is coming down, it's still really high. Yep. And the former vice chair of the Fed was like, hey, it's not people getting higher wages that's driving inflation. Instead, she says what's making everything expensive is something called price-to-price spiral, which is basically price gouging.
So doesn't this sound again like when Ford and the other CEO of recent times increased the wages of their employees and they got chastised and besmirched and slandered in the news by everyone? Anyone remember that episode?
Companies just mark up the cost of their products and services even though their input cost hasn't increased. This guy is a famous economist and he was even like, profit margins have led to inflation. And this was getting really egregious in 2022 when retailers and some consumer brand companies were convincing their shoppers that, hey, we have no choice, we just have to raise prices, which is actually not true. And the thing is, a lot of companies started convincing us that this is just how it works. Everything has to go up in price and we have to accept it. Technically, that's not how economics works.
And also, it's false that this is true, because they're saying they have record profits. I will always bring this example up. Company, let's just say Apple. Apple makes 10 billion this year. Next year they want to make 12 billion. So to make 12 billion, they jack up prices. Next year they want to make 14. They jack up prices again, or they make more stuff. Let's just say pandemic happens. Now instead of hitting that 14 billion, they go back down to 10 billion. Again, this is still 10 billion in profits, but it's not the 14 billion they want it to hit. At that point, they're going to say, oh, sorry guys, we have to raise prices. And in their mind, why do they have to raise prices? Because they want to make 16 billion now, not 14, not 12, not 10, and they're at 10 because things are getting fucked up. But again, you're still at 10 billion of profit. You're not losing money by a shred. And it's just stupid. It's greed. It all goes back to greed.
There's this saying that economists like to say, especially in colleges, where high prices are cured by high prices, which means that a company can only make something as expensive as a customer is willing to pay. That's why cars don't sell for $1 million. That
some of them do.
Price is like way too outrageous. But during this time, we're seeing like cars that usually sell for $30,000 being sold for $50,000. And there's enough buyers that believe that price is fair that they're buying it, even though it shouldn't actually cost that much to buy the car.
So I actually, again, made an example with this for my friends back in the day. And my example goes like this. Let's say there's a service like, I don't want to say penicillin. I want to say, what's that thing that cures diabetes? Insulin. Let's just say there's insulin, you know, a thing people need, right? And insulin is being charged at like $50 a pop, which is already outrageous. And 100 people can buy it. 100 people buying insulin, you know, people need it, but forget about even them needing it. Let's just say 100 people are buying it. The company, I don't know, what is it called? Eli Lilly or whatever. They're making money. 100 people are buying it, $50 a pop. Let's just say they want to increase the price to 100. Excuse me. At that point, only 75 people can buy it. Even though 75 people are buying it, it's less people who are buying it. They're making more of a profit. So even though there's still 100 people that need it and less people are buying it, they're still making more money, so they do not care. And this is the problem with rich people. Rich people can kind of work against this whole notion of, oh, you know, eventually if people can't buy it, it won't matter. No, because rich people can supplement it. Now, again, it's going to reach a critical mass to where even the rich people aren't going to buy it, or there's not going to be enough rich people who are buying it. But that's a very high limit, I would believe, for some things. I don't know for sure, for certain, but just in theory, right? Where rich people meddle this whole thing up for the poor people. Rich people just make everything fucking worse, man.
The whole thing is a self-fulfilling prophecy, and the people who lose are us,
always.
The consumer.
Yeah.
Even the almighty Fed chair Jerome Powell, who was very quick to blame consumers, us, for high inflation, has
fault.
now actually changed his tune. He is now saying that high wages are not likely to be driving inflation, and instead it could be other factors, which is very different than what he said in 2021.
Maybe it's him.
So what does this mean for you? Everything
We're fucked.
is very expensive, and those costs are not necessarily justified.
They aren't justified. Not necessarily, they aren't.
Prices will
They're only justified if you agree that companies should make 14 billion instead of 12 billion from last year. Again, billions, as Trump would say, billions.
Continue to increase if people just buy. Like, there's this mindset that we think, oh, inflation is high, therefore everything should be more expensive, and that's what causes the price spiral.
And this is also what causes a lot of people to be complicit and just allow these things to happen. They're just thinking, oh, hey, it's just this way. No, it's not. We're allowing it to be this way. Very nice video. Very, very nice video. A lot of what I said is in here. Let's go next.
I want to take you behind the scenes on
Hey, Jeff Jackson!
something. Last year for my campaign, I had to buy a lot of advertising on TV, so I learned how much it cost. Running one ad on Judge Judy cost me $300.
So this is where he's going to go into, again, my circle of expertise being media. Media is so important. I'll tell you this, right? Let's just say you're trying to sell a product. Let's just say you make a game, you make something new, you have a food you want to sell, fast food, anything. One of the biggest, or even you're running for office like Jeff Jackson is, I can already tell you what he's going to say. One of the biggest, if not the biggest cost, the biggest spending you will do is on advertising. Advertising is so important. Media, as useless as it is, it's so important for understanding how society is manipulated.
One ad on Chicago Fire was $5,000 because it's a big primetime show. And one ad during a Panthers football game was $50,000. I could afford 0 of those. But Wheel of Fortune, ads during Wheel of Fortune cost $3,000, but they come with a pretty big audience, so I bought a lot of those. I loaded up on Wheel of Fortune and some other shows at similar price points. The effect was immediate. It was amazing. It was like all of a sudden I existed to a bunch of people I had never existed to before. Here's why I'm telling you this. Because last week we were all on the House floor to vote on the debt ceiling. This was the big vote to avoid default. And I'm standing next to a congressman who's been there for a while. And I say something to him like, I hope the country understands that we can't keep getting this close to disaster. It's not good.
And I hope that everyone in Congress understands we can't keep just voting to increase the debt limit, the debt ceiling, it's not sustainable. It's gonna break.
And he looked at me and said, "How much are you willing to spend to teach them?" And I knew what he meant. He was talking about Wheel of Fortune. No one's going to run any ads about the debt ceiling, which means for a big part of the country, this thing we just went through, it'll be like it never happened. It won't exist. There are a lot of issues like this. The truth is, taking something from a blip on the radar to an issue that people will vote on usually means cutting checks for Wheel of Fortune and Judge Judy and Chicago Fire, which means everyone in Congress knows that having the money to buy those ads will have a bigger political impact on them than their actual voting record. And that's true and really bad. Using the commercials that run during game shows as one of the main ways we hold politicians accountable is not a good system. And the way we'll know that politics is getting better is if more people become well informed enough to stop making decisions based on political commercials.
Yep, based on the media. A lot of people are so dependent on the media, not even just dependent, but so influenced by the media, where they only do what they see and they don't know the reality. If some bad actor gets on the Wheel of Fortune ad and shows people something, and the perfect example of this has to do with Louis Rossman on YouTube with Right to Repair. He basically argues for something that's extremely correct. I would honestly go out on a limb and say he's very right in what he's arguing for, which is right to repair, and the big companies do not want him to do this. And the big companies have played all these scummy ads that show right to repair in such a negative light that is obviously biased and bad, that people vote against it when they're literally voting against themselves. This is good for them. Like, right to repair is good for them, and they vote against themselves. It's so stupid. So essentially, basically, God, I forgot my fucking train of thought because I'm thinking about Louis Rossman. But essentially, media has a big effect on people, right? And this is where a lot of Americans are pretty stupid. So they only really care about what they see first, and what really, touches their biases, I would say. So this is where, again, a lot of things are influenced by the media. And this is where he says this needs to change, this is bad. Jeff Jackson says this. But this is where it's just inherent to human nature. You can't get people to care that much about politics because it's a boring thing in general. Most of the people are idiots. They don't care. They're just going to follow what they see on TV. And this is where, even though it's bad the way it is, I don't think this can be changed. It's the same thing with short-form content. Now a lot of people are addicted to short-form content because that's what our brains like. You can't rewire the brain to not like dopamine. It likes dopamine, and it gets dopamine from watching short-form content. Yeah, there's those select few that can kind of train themselves to not really be dependent on it, to not care, but the majority of us can't do that, and this is where we get to the inherence of human nature. So I think there's no fixing this. So sorry, Jeff Jackson, I think we're fucked.
Including mine.
Ooh. Okay, so amazing video by Jeff Jackson. Really, we're really hitting home with my media thing today. Instead of titling this episode The Housing Crisis, I might title it My Media Degree or some bullshit. Who knows?
Big Pharma has just sued the U.S. government because, well, they don't want to sell their prescription drugs for cheaper.
Wow, okay, let me restart that just so we could hear that from the beginning again, because wow, this is some fucked up shit.
Big Pharma has just sued the U.S. government because, well, they don't want to sell their prescription drugs for cheaper.
They don't want to sell their prescription drugs for cheaper. So again, what is this going back to? The example I literally just said. Of what? Hey, instead of making 12 billion in profit, up from last year's 10, we want to make even more, but you're not letting us. You're only letting us make 10, which is what we made last year. How dare you? We're suing you. We're suing you that we can't make more and more billions, wringing out the people of this country for essential things they need.
Pharmaceutical giant Merck just sued the Department of Health and Human Services.
You know what's so funny about this too? The pharmaceutical giant, whose name is Merck, whose name literally means to kill in slang, is suing the government. They're trying to murk us with these prices.
Is to block Medicare from using its new negotiating power to bring down certain Part D prescription drug costs for U.S. taxpayers. The power to negotiate 10 widely used high-priced drugs with no generic competition was given to Medicare by Congress when lawmakers passed the inflation.
By our literal government. The government did something good in the right direction, and now look, the private industry is attacking it because there's some things, we often say that the government is bought out, the government is corrupt, and it is. but not 100%. There are stuff they do right, but as we can see, the stuff that they do right that's not in the interest of the corrupt is going to get attacked by the corrupt.
Reduction Act last year. But in the lawsuit filed today, Merck says that power is unconstitutional because it violates their Fifth and First Amendment rights. Merck says, from their perspective, under this new law, the government compels the drug makers to sell particular drugs to Medicare at whatever fair price the agency dictates, which must represent at least a 25 to 60% discount.
So this is where this goes into a very, very, very complicated topic of the law, right? This is where, what jurisdiction does the law have, and what is it, is it good to be free? Is it good to have an open free market? I'm not going to get too into this topic because this is going to start a whole big debate with a lot of people, but think about it like this, right? America can basically do whatever they want, and this is again showing the, I think, tragedies of late stage capitalism, where they are actively, I would honestly say, killing people by making their prescriptions that has no generic competition, so you can't buy a cheaper form of it that's literally the same. It's literally just, off name brand. You cannot buy anything else. You have to buy their thing, and if you need their thing, you have to buy their thing. There's no alternative. You die if it's too expensive, but they keep making it more and more expensive. So at this point, is it fair for the government to step in and reduce the price? I would say yes, it is, because again, they're still making profit. You have to have a heart. If you say it's not fair, you do not care people. You don't care about people at all. You don't care that people are going to die, and you're fully like a stickler for the rules, and you're just about business or profit, and you'd probably be a great businessman but a horrible fucking human being. Like, this is where people's lives are at stake. And again, we're not talking about these companies bending over backwards and taking up the fucking ass, right? We're talking about making just a little less billions in profit. You're still making billions in profit, and it's not even going to your workers, it's going to the fucking greedy fucks at the top. Like, this is so ridiculous.
They say that's a violation of the Fifth Amendment.
And it is. Again, see, according to our current laws, this is a violation of the laws. We're actively getting involved in private business, right? But at this point, we have to question, should we? Is the law wrong? For some cases it is, but this is where it becomes a slippery slope where, okay, if we change it for here, what else can we use it on? What else can it be used for? Especially where, right now, even if we're all in agreement for this, some people will agree with some other thing that's extreme, some people won't. At that point, what do? It opens up Pandora's box, but again, by not opening it, people are dying anyway, so what the fuck do we do? It's a very, very hard situation.
It requires the government to provide just compensation for property taken for public use. The suit goes on to say if they don't comply, then they get hit with a massive tax penalty. They say that's not a negotiation. They say that's extortion and a violation of their First Amendment right to free.
It is a violation of their rights, but it also should be against the law what the fuck they're doing. If you, this is where the law needs to be amended. This is where we need another, what is it called? See, I'm an American. I don't know my own fucking government like this. This is an amendment. I'm fucking stupid. This is where we need a new amendment to our Constitution where if you provide a critical, needed service like housing, food, water, or healthcare, it should be controlled by the government, and hopefully at that point the government prices it fairly and isn't influenced by corrupt people, in the light dimension at least. But this is where I think it honestly needs to be amended, that these things that are critical things, that are core things to people's livelihood, that should just be basic guaranteed stuff, because we're in a society where it can be now, is. And the fact that it isn't, the fact that these drug companies can do what they're doing, it's fucking disgusting and wrong.
Free speech. They want a federal judge to put a stop to Medicare's new negotiating power.
Ridiculous.
Now, it's worth noting that Merck is making billions of dollars a year.
What a surprise. What a surprise.
Here off these particular Part D prescription drugs. The Health and Human Services Secretary responded to today's lawsuit by saying, quote, "The law is on our side, and the U.S. government will vigorously defend the law that allows Medicare to use its enormous buying power to negotiate lower drug costs for American taxpayers."
I hope
this lawsuit is no surprise. Big Pharma has been fuming about this Medicare.
Yeah, Big Pharma has it a long time coming. They've been getting away by making their livelihood, and not livelihood because they're not just living off this, they're profiting, they're becoming rich off this, off people's other livelihood, of actual livelihood, of people literally dying if they don't get these drugs. And the worst part is how, like, this is such a fucking scummy thing. This is so evil. Like, oh, I know you need insulin. You need it to live. there's no alternative because we copyrighted it and we're not going to let any competitors sell it, or else they go to jail because we've influenced the rules. Oh, you need to buy it. Oh yeah, it costs us like, 25 cents to make. We're going to sell it to you for like $75. Oh, you're not making enough because a lot of the people are on minimum wage in this country, or oh, AI took your job, you have no money for it. Oh, too bad, you can die, bye-bye, because the rich are going to pay for it anyway.
Negotiating power since the bill was signed into law last year. In fact, it's possible more pharmaceutical giants will join this lawsuit or file their own against
This
HHS.
is crazy.
Medicare is expected to release the list of the first 10 drugs available for negotiations by September 1st, with these new prices taking effect in 2026.
Oh yeah, in 3 fucking years.
Big Pharma has just...
Bruh, this is so fucked. If this doesn't show you society's fucked, I don't know what does. But great video. Great video in terms of showing us we're fucked.
The war in Ukraine has been an unmitigated disaster for Russia, right? Even
Yes.
if, and it's a big if, it wins, it'll have taken years and hundreds of thousands of dead or wounded Russians, instead of notably...
So, I don't know if I said this last episode, I honestly forgot, but this is basically what the war in Ukraine is becoming, right? Russia thought they would roll over Ukraine in about 2 weeks. Then all of the other big world powers came in, helped Ukraine, which is obviously them being, involved in the war. If Russia says, hey, take United States, for example, if Russia says, hey, US, you're obviously helping them in the war, you're a part of this war, like you're helping them, stop helping them, right? Then US is actually going to get involved and Russia will hardcore lose unless they nuke us. But if they nuke us, everyone's dead. So this is where, right, Russia basically put themselves in an impossible situation where Putin does not want to lose because he hates his image looking weak. He can't look weak. So at this point, he can't win because they're literally getting powered by the best government in the world, us and others. We're sending how many billions of dollars of aid to them? Rockets, jets, well, not nukes, but missiles, guns, ammo, everything except soldiers, where they're not going to lose. They might not win. Who knows if they'll win unless Russia decides to play nice with them and strike a fucking deal. But they're not going to fucking lose at this point. There's no way they can lose with the amount of help they're getting. So Russia is basically in a spot of eternal stalemate where you're looking like a fool anyway. This is where I'm wondering, how long is Putin going to give this up or keep this up? Because, he's not, chances are he's really not winning this. He's going to look more like a fool the longer this goes on, unless he keeps lying to his people. And at this point, are there people who want to oust them? Probably. There always probably have been. But how close are they going to get to actually doing it?
the handful of days they had planned for. But again, it is increasingly looking like things are just getting worse for Russia, with recently the war coming home with bombardments and incursions into their territory. And that's without mentioning the animosity between the mercenary group Wagner and the Russian army.
So this is where I'm going to spoil a little of the current events, because again, this is about a month behind, right? So Wagner is a private mercenary group that Russia hired, and Wagner, who's led by this old guy, this guy used to be a hot dog stand vendor from what I can remember, if I heard things right. The leader of the Wagner group is a fucking stand cart vendor. I don't know if it's specifically hot dogs, but again, if what was said was true, which it could not be, he was a fucking cart vendor. So this guy who's a part of the Wagner group is fucking crazy, and he started marching on Russia because he's like, oh, Russia's not providing us enough support, because he's probably seeing how much support the Ukrainians are getting, and he's like, bro, what the fuck? Why is Russia not helping us? Well, Russia's on its own, reserves that it's basically running out on. It cannot beat the US in terms of reserves and the rest of the world. So it's Wagner's probably salty. So Wagner marched on Russia, and they were going to start a civil war, as if the people aren't already starting one. Who knows with that, right? But, basically they cut a deal and it didn't happen. But, there's a lot of, discontent and a lot of stuff going on that's just bad for Russia in their own army. Even in the beginning of this war a year ago, I heard that Russians were literally giving up and Ukrainians were just taking Russian tanks. What the fuck?
A rivalry that has led to accusations from the leader of Wagner that the Russian army mined the roads out of Bakhmut in order to damage and maim his troops. And now most recently, he captured and arrested a Russian brigade commander who allegedly ordered his troops to fire on Wagner, meaning there's just open fighting between the two groups. And in a video on Wagner's Telegram, this commander claims he was drunk when he gave the order and did so because he just dislikes the Wagner group. And what's shocking for many is the leader of this group has been seemingly able to get away with not only openly bashing Russia's military leadership and even capturing an officer, but also reportedly working with Ukrainian intelligence, with being two main trains of thought on why this could be. One is that he just became so influential with his de facto army that, at least for the time being, he's untouchable. Or it's that he's been given some free rein by Putin to do some of these things in order to pit his military leaders against one another, which, while it sounds weird, is a strategy used by dictators to maintain power by ensuring no single person could challenge them.
Yep. So this is where, like, you take out your own people who you consider enemies in a very subversive way. So, oh, you know, we're both under Russia, but I don't really like this guy as a leader. Yeah, he's a leader, but he's obviously against me. He wants to be the leader. He's not the leader now, but he wants to be. He disagrees with me. We're both Russian. How do I take him out? A third party.
But amidst this chaos and unknown with the fog of war, I gotta say, a demoralized and less effective Russian military, that's a W.
So this is where I'm very scared, and I don't blame Philip DeFranco for reporting on the news the way he is, but this is pretty much basically, I hope, and I'm fearful of this, but I think it's causing a lot of Russian hate, where again, I'm assuming this is not the majority of Russia, it's just the Russian army, which again, they have to follow orders, right? But it's the Russian, like, heads of government, it's the Russian, like, top dogs who are causing all these issues, right? I'm pretty sure the Russian citizens are citizens. This is where I don't want there to be any hate for a whole group or a whole people. I want it to be for just those responsible, which again are the people at the top in this case, right? I don't want people to hate Russia or hate Russians because they probably have nothing to do with this. They're the ones suffering from this shit too. They probably don't want this either. A lot of people are normal, regular people who don't want all this bullcrap, but they have to put up with it because that's what the leaders want. It's very sad. But anyway, let's go next.
The mayor of New York now wants to make homeless people live in your private home with you.
Okay, so this is where, again, this is where I think, this is our current mayor. I forgot his name. Eric Adams. It says in the description here. So Eric Adams, I've only heard mainly bad things about Eric Adams. And this is where, the media focuses on a lot of the bad most of the time. But he's probably done good things too, but it's a shame that I only hear the bad, because everyone does bad and good things. It's like a fact. But again, stuff is highlighted in the media, and especially on TikTok, and for some reason TikTok likes showing me only the bad with him. So I've heard a lot of bad and stupid things from Eric Adams. I mean, granted, it could be the reality that this guy is just really bad and stupid at what he does, and he's doing stuff not really for the people, but for the certain groups he wants to help. But yeah, no, from what he's saying here, if this is true, this is ridiculous. We have to solving the housing crisis not through using regular people's houses and stuff. Why don't we use all the buildings that are freaking vacant in New York City that I see every day because no one wants to rent them because the rent is insane and huge?
Residents who are suffering right now because of economic challenges, they have spare rooms. We can take that $4.2 billion and we can put it back in the pockets of everyday New Yorkers.
That means that if
See, this is where I'm all for people helping out people, but this is where it doesn't need to get to this point yet, because the government, it's their job to do this, and they can literally do this with all the buildings that are empty. Businesses aren't renting them, they're literally empty, right? And you can say, oh, it might hurt businesses. Businesses aren't renting these places because no one wants to pay the insane fucking rent of $70K a month. Like, it's insane. And I bet you Eric Adams is not going to do this with his fucking mansion that he owns.
you have room in your house, he wants to put a homeless person in there to live with you. Now,
yeah, and this is where the sad part is. A lot of the people in New York, my heart goes out to them, but they are people that need help. And I'm not talking about help with housing. I'm talking about mental help. These people have drug problems. These people are maybe violent, maybe criminals. And I'm not trying to put them down or, talk shit about them. But this is what I see as the reality. Yeah, sure, some of the people are just down on their luck and stuff. But some of the people that are out there are very much messed up people who need professional help. If we put them in a home with us, we're going to be fearful in our own home. They might steal from us. They might, do violence against us. And I don't want to assume, right? Because there are, just good people that are homeless. But sometimes it's not so good people that are homeless and that they need professional help.
Just last week, he said he was going to cut meat consumption in New York, and he wants everyone to only eat
plant-powered meals.
So first, you allow...
Okay, if you messing with my steak that I'm eating right next to me, we're going to have a big issue, Mr. Adams. I like my fucking meat in my mouth.
Rent in your city to get so astronomically high.
Yeah, I mean, it's New York. Again, look, even I'm subject to this damn thing. Oh, this is just how it is. No! Once we say that, we've lost!
That no one could afford rent.
Yup, except the rich.
Then, instead of mandating a rent freeze, which would anger your real estate friends, you take taxpayer money and offer to give some of it back by paying people to let a homeless person stay in their home. So owners can keep raising the rent, and the state will give you back some of your money to pay them more. Do you understand what they want to accomplish? Make you so dependent on the government to the point where you can't even do basic things like pay rent. The more you're dependent on the government to provide your ability to live, the more accepting and supporting you'll be when they enact more repressive woke policies.
No, this is where, you know, the more you'll be at their whims because you get everything from them and you don't know how to do things yourself, or you're not allowed to do things yourself.
You lose your monthly check. Now, obviously, these ideas that seem crazy on the outside didn't just come to him one night. He's being fed this stuff by their higher-ups.
Yes. As always, influenced by the rich. Very good video. Let's go next. Oh my god, this is so loud. Okay, so the little caption here for those who can't see it, every New Yorker right now. Yes. Oh, I forgot about this. So yeah, this was about a month ago now. So this is where New York literally turned Trump colored. And I shit you not, it looked like a horror movie. This is where Canada was burning. A lot of the forests in Canada were burning. And because of the wind currents, a lot of that was like blown to New York City. New York City had the worst air quality in the fucking world. And guess what? They didn't cancel work for it. They allowed people to be outside in it. Eventually, they're like, oh yeah, you know, wear some masks and this and that. And, you know, certain people shouldn't go outside, like kids and elderly. But yeah, no, they did it too late because they don't want to harm businesses. They want money. So like, dude, it was actually insane looking. Like, I tried to take a picture of it with my phone, but like it didn't save too well because my camera is shitty. But like, oh my god, it was insane. Things were literally orange. And this thing here that they're saying, again, this is not really a joke. It's joking, but it's not far off. You are breathing straight poison right now, lol. And this was like, you know, New Yorkers' reaction to it, pretty much. Yeah, so people were surprised, but they were still smoking and vaping, so. And I went running in this, so I didn't really care either. New Yorkers just really don't fucking give a fuck at this point. But yeah, no, New York was literally orange. It was fucking nuts. Very nice video. Let's go next.
This is unbelievable. A disabled man's wife and carer have just been convicted of slavery after they kept him as a cash cow spending his inheritance, all while they were having an affair. And that's not even the worst part. The conditions that they kept him in were so bad that this slavery case is believed to be the first of its kind, with the judge concluding there is ample evidence that Tom was held as if he was a cattle or animal. Tom, who has a history degree, suffers from cerebral palsy and needs 24-hour assistance.
This is depressing.
Instead of caring for him, his wife and caretaker treated him like a piece of property. His fingernails grew out, he became super thin, only weighing 42 kg. They only showered him once a week, fed him the odd sandwich or pack of crisps, and he even went an entire year without brushing his teeth. He said that he spent 90% of the 4-year period in bed. And this is all while they were spending his money to fund their life and buy weed. Text messages
and buy weed?
Revealed in court show his carer saying, no food for dickhead if he has 2 meals.
No. Okay, I'm sorry for laughing, but that's so funny. No food for dickhead.
He'll just shit it all. Get rid of him. I think you need to leave him and get your life back. To which his wife replied, remember, we're just using him. Dickhead gets paid soon and I will take the money out of his account for weed. He eventually was able to raise the alarm about how he was being treated, and a rescue operation compared in court to a hostage extraction.
This is insane. By the way, like, they say hostage extraction. They have the fucking riot squad, the SWAT-like team coming in. Look at the way these people look.
Fully took place. He's now being cared for at a residential home, while his abusers face.
Look at the way these people look. These people do not look like they can go up the stairs without, like, being out of breath. I don't think we needed the SWAT team.
It's a lengthy period behind bars.
Bro, they should get life. They should get life. This guy's saying 30 years minimum. They should fucking be in jail for the rest of their fucking life. And even then, that's worse on all of us because we have to pay for their asses to live with our tax money. But like, bro, this is actually disgusting. These are the horror stories I hear, and again, I'm going to repeat myself again, of I have a soft spot for old people. The old people in retirement homes, these people who literally like can't do anything themselves and can't raise an alarm or anything, that get abused, infuriates me so badly. I want to be like, let me not say things I'll regret. But dude, oh my god, it makes me so fucking pissed. It makes me so fucking angry when people take advantage of people who can't fight back and who can't like say anything. Like, this guy has cerebral palsy. He's suffering for like how long and they're taking his money, treating him like shit, and he can't do anything about it. And again, it hurts me more when it's old people, but even for a young guy like this that, you know, is disabled, this boils my fucking blood alive. These people should be fucking punished to the maximum extent of any law. Do not kill them, no death penalty. Make sure they live a long life and suffer the way they made this guy suffer. That is justice. That is fucking justice. This is fucking sick. This shows that, again, people, the human race, are fucking sick, greedy fuckers. This guy, you know, he has a history degree. He's obviously not a stupid person. He can't help it that he is the way he is. He needs to be cared for. It's not like he's trying to mooch off of them. This is just how things are. And these people are abusing him, stealing from him, taking advantage of him, and shitting on him. What the flying fuck? Like, oh my god. It's stuff like this where, again, we see this. How much of this is stuff that we don't see, especially in the retirement homes, which is like something I will never do. I will never let my grandparents go into a retirement home for as long as they live. I will care for them, I will hate it, but I will still find it better than putting them in the care of someone else who can abuse them. I know I won't, because I'm their grandson. But like, oh my god, this is so fucking disgusting, and I hate it. And it shows how sick some fucking people are. That they don't have the common courtesy to you know, just not even just care for this guy. Like, it's bad enough they're stealing from him, but you can't even care for him properly? Like, they didn't brush his teeth, they didn't cut his nails, they treated him like a fucking animal for so long. This guy deserves the world, man. Oh my god, I feel so bad. Like, he didn't ask for this, he didn't deserve this. This is terrible. This is fucking horrible. Let's go next.
Here's how the Apple Vision Pro wiped out $85 billion of market value in 40 minutes.
So this is where, again, this shows how like fickle the stock market is, where this is something that's real. So usually we go over stuff that's fake that affects the stock market, usually something that's AI or something that's fake that, you know, people post and people think it's real. But, you know, this is literally just a company making something stupid, and they're, you know, the rich people making it who think like, you know, normal people will use this, they won't, and then they're dumb, and then the stock price falls because they're like, what the fuck is this?
The presentation starts at 10 a.m. in California. As Apple talks about its other new products, the share price starts to decline as investors ask, where's the headset? Finally,
like, that's insane, right? Think about all the stuff that affects the stock market. Now, obviously, this has to do a lot with like the people who own a lot of stock in Apple, but this is where Apple is so big that the common people have so much like interest in it where they can affect the stock too, not to massive amounts, but they can too. Like, this is so funny where like arbitrary things that shouldn't matter literally will wipe out people's wealth. It's so funny.
It comes at 11:21 a.m.
It's already been a big day, but we do have one more thing.
Damn, Tim Cook looking a little fatty, yo. He looked like he gained a little weight.
Introducing Apple Vision Pro.
The excitement doesn't last long.
Look, it went up a little bit.
It's later, Apple shows the first use case for the headset.
Dude, you know what's crazy? And I've mentioned this before too, as always. Back in the day, in cartoons and stuff from the past, they used to show like sci-fi stuff of what they thought the future would like. And we used to think it was nonsense, right? It ain't nonsense anymore. I swear to God, I've seen this thing in like a commercial or something, or like a cartoon way back in the day of them making like a futuristic episode. Like, this shit looks comical. It doesn't look cool. It looks fucking weird. Like, it looks like a thing from like SpongeBob where they'll get teleported to the future and we'll see all these people wearing these weird things that look like so sci-fi and ugly. But this is what this looks like. This looks so stupid.
As far as investors are concerned, it's bad news.
Let's see Apple Vision Pro in action for work.
Oh yes, for work, the thing we all love.
The message investors take away is that Apple wants to sell this to businesses first.
Not the consumer. The worst thing you can do is not sell to the consumer. The consumer is the lifeblood of Apple because these people are fucking deranged maniacs that get the same phone every year that's slightly different and pay exorbitant amounts of money for it. And the sad part is, I'm one of them. But the good part is, I don't pay money for it. I keep it until I get a free trade-in for the newest one, because at the end of the day, it's really good for statistics for them to say, hey, this many people have our Apple devices. Ignore how many we gave away for free. This is how many people have it. This is where, again, my media degree has shown me this, where the numbers matter even if it's fake.
In other words, it's not a mass market product yet. the shares fall.
Oof.
Half an hour later, there's more bad news.
Apple Vision Pro starts at $34.99.
Bro, starts. That means it could get more expensive depending on whatever bullshit version they release.
It will be available early next year on
Not even this year.
Apple.com and at Apple retail stores in the US.
Dude, this looks crazy. Are those her real eyes, or are those like an LED screen that is reflecting what her eyes are looking at?
With more countries coming later next year.
I.e., it's more expensive than investors had expected, it's not coming out this year, and it'll only be available in Apple's home market, to begin with at least. Now, this is just one day's trading. The value lost.
Yeah, this went back up. I'll tell you this, Apple, I don't know what it is in the stock market, but people just love Apple. It is the #1 stock in the world, and it's just not losing. One day it might, and if it does, I will definitely be her because I have a good amount on Apple, but oh man.
Is a small part of Apple's total $2.9 trillion valuation, but it's a pretty good indicator of how the people who actually own Apple feel about this first iteration of the headset and what they're hoping for next time around.
Bro, don't go by that, because the people, like I said, who like Apple, they're fucking crazy. They don't know what the fuck they want. But anyway, I like how the comments say, right? Apple stock always drops after they announce new products. It also drops when they announce quarterly results. So no matter what, Apple can't find a break when announcing stuff or doing new things, but somehow the stock always recovers, and I don't know why. It's more like, I don't want to say it's a meme stock, but it's a stock where like the whole mentality around is, let's just buy Apple because it's Apple, because it's #1. We don't even care about Apple products. We just care because it's #1, and that's its own like thing. Like that's its own influence. It's fucking wild. Anyway, let's go next.
Just like feudal society became outdated, so too has capitalism.
Yes, so this is, what's this guy's name? Hold on. Let me see, because I have him right here, actually. Hold on. Look, it's
Increase
him.
our freedom.
Second Thought. His name is Second Thought. So Second Thought, right here is probably going to tell us why capitalism is bad.
There have always been problems with this narrative of rising living standards.
Yep.
But recently, capitalism has started to fail even the people who once got a decent shake out of it.
And this is where I say the people who used to be like in the middle class who had it good, they're being treated like they're the lower class. And now the people in the upper class, you give it a little bit, they're going to start being treated like the middle class. Everyone's going to be brought down except those at the very top, and that very top list is going to get shorter and shorter.
2 or 3 generations ago, it was a no-brainer that a job could get you a house and enough money to support a family, pay your way through college, and get access to healthcare.
Yeah, now you get nothing.
You weren't exactly free, but you weren't doing too badly either.
Honestly, yeah. Look at how happy that family is. Dude, the way I see my life going with the amount I'm making, with, you know, what I'm capable of, as stupid as I am, I can't see myself getting any good job because the economy and myself are both useless. So, with the amount of money I could get that's near minimum wage, I can't afford to go out because I'm working all the time. No person's gonna want me because I make next to no money, and that's the culture for dating nowadays. So I'm basically gonna grow up alone, miserable for the rest of my life, making next to no money, and eventually die just providing what little I can to the corporate overlords. But here, you know, I at least would have liked this. I would have liked the family. Maybe one day.
That is no longer true.
Sad.
The few people at the top have been given so much freedom to keep the money you made for them by working in their offices, at their storefronts, and in their factories that there isn't much left for you.
Very true.
High school and college graduates, once guaranteed stable employment and livable wages, are losing out.
Yes, I'm the example. One of them.
Nowadays, between 40 and 50% of college grads are unemployed or working in a job that doesn't require a diploma.
Guess what? All the jobs I've had never needed a diploma.
Indebted at rates that completely overshadow their salaries.
Big facts.
And the story's the same across the economy. For someone working at Amazon to make as much money as Jeff Bezos does in just 1 year, they would have to work for 58 years. And that's just with his salary. If
his salary.
we start counting dividends, you'd be working every day of every year of multiple lifetimes just to catch up to Bezos' single lap around the sun.
Bro.
Just
let's see Jeffrey's salary. Jeff Bezos' salary. Wow, 1.5 million a year? Ew, what is this picture of him? Founder and executive chair of Amazon. July 2021, the richest person on earth. His substantial holdings is, and look what I said before, real estate. He's invested in Twitter, Business Insider, ZocDoc, Nextdoor. Each year he commits $1 billion to his space exploration company, Blue Origin. This is fucking wild. Dude, when you're rich, you can just do whatever the fuck you want. It is fucking insane. And this is the scary part too, and I've heard this too on TikTok. Once you are rich, there is almost no limit to what you can do as long as you want to do it. If you're like ultra rich, like we're talking billions, almost nothing is off the table for you, illegal or legal. But this is fucking crazy.
The world is watching in disbelief at what looks like an
look, it's Trump, New York.
Apocalypse coming out of North America right now. Authorities in New York have begun giving out millions of free masks. Hundreds of outdoor events are being cancelled. And according to the latest estimates, this blanket of smoke is...
Look at this. I was literally in this. This is fucking crazy.
Impacted more than 115 million people.
Me.
Projected to last a few more days. For perspective, a safe number for breathing on the air quality index is about 50. But in parts of New York on Wednesday, it reached a mind-blowing...
Look at the before and after. And you know what the sad part is? This is really bad for our health, but I love this. Like, I love darkness. I love, like, bad weather. This was, like, amazing for me.
410 for a brief time was the worst on Earth. And if you want one of the eeriest pictures of 2023, this is the blood red sun setting over the Statue of Liberty.
So fucking hot.
All of this is coming from the hundreds of forest fires that are ripping through Canada right now, and have so far scorched close to 10 million acres, which is roughly the size of Switzerland, forcing more than 120,000 people from their homes. And thanks to a bloody developing storm system, in the coming days, the smoke is expected to shift westwards across the Great Lakes and deeper south through the Ohio Valley. But of course, as more develops, I'll keep you guys updated.
Wow. Well, thank you very much, Dylan Page. Insane. Insane. I love it, though. But yeah, no. The world's fucking burning.
It literally looks like a zombie apocalypse has begun in the US right now. Eerie footage is coming out of Philadelphia this week showing hordes of people slouched over but still standing, seemingly conscious and unconscious at the same time.
We looked about this in another episode where, like, people were given this thing called Trank, like, which is literally horse tranquilizer. The drug epidemic is getting pretty bad in America, man, because again, if you have people who are depressed all the time making very little money, they want to have some sort of enjoyment, because that's how humans are, and they're going to resort to drugs, because there's literally no other alternative.
One video walked through the crowded sidewalk with tents, people sat in camping chairs, empty needle packets on the floor, showing a devastating side of America that has quickly spiraled into an epidemic. The thing that's turning these people into these zombie-like figures is a newer drug sweeping US cities called xylazine, or better known as Trank. It's intended to sedate larger animals like cows and horses, but more recently, people have begun abusing it because of the unique high it gives. Unfortunately,
because you need a unique high for the unique fucking fucked up world that we live in. Only a unique high can get you to forget how fucked things are.
It also brings horrific side effects, including raw wounds that spread rapidly and can result in rotting flesh or amputation if left untreated. In fact, the drug is so potent that the White House recently declared...
This literally looks like a zombie apocalypse.
...declared it an emerging threat. And according to a 2022 report,
oh my god.
Xylazine has now been discovered in 36 states. It literally looks like...
Lovely. Lovely. But anyway... the ironic part is I actually saw someone who was on this in the New York City subway, and he had open wounds, he was on the floor, blood everywhere around him, and guess what? No one batted an eye. Everyone ignored him, avoided him. I don't think anyone called the police. We just all went on with our day while this guy was bleeding out, probably dying on the New York City subway floor. The most people thought was, damn, why is he in my way? Society's so fucked, man. But anyway, I think we're gonna end it here because the Grimace Shake is still exploding my insides days later, so I have to go explode in the bathroom. But I think we got through a decent chunk today, honestly. I think today we didn't go for too long, right? Okay, we went for like 2 hours. We did go a little long, but that's fine. But we got to right about here. So we are up to, if I can like this thing, there we go. We got to January 8th, so now we are less than a month behind. Pretty good. I don't know if I'm going to keep recording these every day because we have 2 days left of our break, but we'll see. But anyway, hope everyone enjoyed, and like I said, I stream every day at Twitch TV/Tecnics channel, mostly at night now, and I hope to see you there. Hope everyone enjoyed.